Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President-elect Donald Trump issuing a blunt warning to Hamas. Release the hostages by the time he takes office, or, quote, there will be all hell to pay. That message coming as Hezbollah launches attacks against Israel despite the ceasefire, and Israel strikes back. And meanwhile, Christians in Syria are terrified as Islamist forces strengthen their positions amid warfare there. Here at home, free speech under fire, with many hoping Donald Trump will protect the constitutional right, as some say the First Amendment is outdated. And our look at the new movie Bonhoeffer, Pastor Spy Assassin, about the courageous Lutheran pastor Deitrich Bonhoeffer, who opposed Hitler and the Nazis. All those stories and more ahead today, right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this Tuesday in the Middle East, where the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah is being tested as the terrorist group has launched attacks against Israel, with Israel launching strikes in return. And now, President-elect Donald Trump warning Hamas of extremely serious consequences if they don't release the hostages. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
The incoming president delivered a strong message to Hamas, demanding the release of the hostages in Gaza by the time he takes office. Trump wrote on social media, if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East and for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity. Trump's statement comes just days after an emotional appeal by Israeli-American Idan Alexander on a Hamas propaganda video, and the announcement that Hamas murdered another Israeli-American hostage, Omer Nutra, after Hamas took him captive when his tank was overrun on October 7th. President Biden also responded to the news, releasing a statement that read in part, less than a month ago, Omer's mother and father joined me at the White House to share the pain they've endured as they prayed for the safe return of their son, pain no parent should ever know. House Speaker Mike Johnson posted, please join us in praying for the Nutra family as we continue to seek justice against Hamas and the return of Omer's body. On Israel's northern border, the ceasefire is holding, despite Hezbollah firing mortar shells into a disputed site on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Israel responded with military strikes. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said Hezbollah forces operating south of the Litani River violates the ceasefire.
They must move north immediately. I want to emphasize, Israel is committed to the successful implementation of the ceasefire, but we will not accept a return to the situation as it stood on October 6, 2023. If violations occur, Israel will enforce.
In Syria, Islamist radicals strengthen their grip on Aleppo, Syria's second largest city. Christians inside the city are terrified. One couple telling CBN News they fear for their lives and possible massacres.
And so now we have what's called Hayat Tel al-Sham, a terrorist group that is known as being jihadists who follow Sharia law, have just taken over Aleppo. And while they've announced that they're not targeting Christians or any religious minorities right now, there's much fear because the way they've governed Idlib, where they currently control, they've been using Sharia law there.
Nadine Maenza, the president of the International Religious Freedom Secretariat, tells CBN News it's vital for Christians to pray and speak out.
I think this is a time for the church to come together and think about how we can support those who are suffering. So many good organizations doing work for those who are fleeing to provide support. So many ways we can tell the stories that we're reading about, hearing about. So, we're supposed to remember our brothers and sisters in chains. And this is one of those times where we can remember those who are suffering and pray for them and do what we can to support them.
Continue our coverage now with our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joining us from Jerusalem. So, Chris, we're going to talk more about what the Christians in Aleppo in a moment, what they're saying. But first, how is Trump's warning to Hamas being received there in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, people are saying it's about time, that this should have been said on October 8th. Americans were murdered and kidnapped, as well as Israeli Americans, as well as many Israelis and many other nationalities. And there's the sense is it's about time somebody said something so forcefully. Many believe the White House and the State Department for more than a year have really been too timid, too weak in their response, especially when American lives are at stake right now. Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Heskel, she posted on X and she said this: Trump knows that those who have supported Hamas and their evil are not just the enemies of Israel, but of the civilized world. Thank you for your moral clarity, Mr. Trump. So there's an anticipation because of what Trump has said on this issue, as many others. There's going to be a very different relationship between the White House, the administration on so many levels, from Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, and certainly the hostages when President Trump takes over next month.
All that said, is there any idea what Trump or the U.S. could do about the hostage situation?
Well, some people have been telling us, and the head of MEMRI, the Middle East Media Research Institute, Yigal Karman, has said that really what the U.S. could do is put pressure on Qatar. That's the sponsor of Hamas. Many believe they say that they've been the arsonists and the firemen. They've supported Hamas for years with billions of dollars, and yet they're the ones, the main mediators between Israel and Hamas. And what Trump could do would be threaten to remove CENTCOM. That's the U.S. base inside Qatar. And Kamran has told us just the threat of removing the base would send shivers through Qatar's leadership. Then Qatar could put pressure on Hamas to release those hostages. And that would be one way he could do to really put pressure on Hamas and the other people holding Americans as well as many other nationalities.
Chris, despite the ceasefire, Hezbollah has launched attacks against Israel, and Israel has responded. Do Israeli authorities expect this ceasefire to hold?
Well, it seems shaky right now, and as we heard from Gideon Sa'ar, the foreign minister, they expect to enforce it, and it will be up to Hezbollah to keep out of southern Lebanon. What we're seeing in action right now is what was supposed to happen since 2006, when UN Resolution 1701 forbade any militia from having any arms inside southern Lebanon, from the Litani River all the way down to the Israeli-Lebanese border. The UNIFIL was supposed to enforce that. The Lebanese army was supposed to enforce that. They didn't. So if Hezbollah continues, it seems like the ceasefire will fail. And there has been a mechanism in place to report and respond to violations. I felt at first it was going to be too cumbersome, but you can see from what Israel's doing, they're taking immediate steps to come back against any Hezbollah violation.
Chris, what about the Christians in Aleppo in Syria? How bad is the situation there for them?
It's very bad. As we said in our report, I was contacted by a couple in Aleppo. They feel like their lives are in danger, and especially those Muslims who have come to faith in Jesus. That is really a death sentence for many of these people. And this is what the HTS, the Harat Tahrir al-Sham, that is the main group there. As Nadine Maenza said, they will impose Sharia law in there, radically change life in Aleppo. The regime was not a good situation, but it was safe for Christians. And this group will likely impose this kind of Sharia law and put many of these Christians at risk, especially ones who were formerly Muslims. And so it's a very, very difficult, serious situation for them.
How can we as Christians pray for them right now?
Well, pray for their protection, Ephraim. Pray that their plight will be known internationally, that the international community, that the global church would speak up for supernatural protection and for wisdom. Some of these people don't know exactly if they should leave Aleppo, should they stay and risk staying, or should they leave and basically start with nothing. So it remains to be seen exactly what many of these Christians will do, but I would think speak up would be another thing, and certainly pray for them and make their plight known. Nadine, that was something she emphasized in our interview with her.
What do you have for us this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, Ephraim, we have more updates about what's happening here in the region. We also have analysis with Jonathan Spire. He gives a really clear view of what's happening. It can be a very complicated, sometimes confusing situation, especially in Syria when you're looking at it from a distance. He really gives a very clear picture of what it's like. We also have insight from Hanania Naftali. He talks about the International Criminal Court and what that implication are for Israeli leaders. And we also have, we're going to be talking with Paul Strand. We're going to be talking some of the larger issue, the theological issues and end time issues about what's happening here in the Middle East. All that coming up on today's Jerusalem Dateline.
All right, look forward to that this evening. Thank you so much, Chris, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief. We appreciate your insights. Stay safe, and know we here continue to pray for you and our team there. For you at home, you can catch Jerusalem Dateline this evening at 8 Eastern. You'll find it on the CBN News channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or simply check it out on YouTube. Coming up, a growing danger in America, the suppression of free speech. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to reverse this trend. The question is exactly how will he do it? We're going to have that story for you when we come back.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Free speech advocates are looking forward to President-elect Donald Trump returning to the Oval Office. During the campaign, he committed to protect free speech at home when some argue the First Amendment is outdated and needs to be redefined. CBN's Gary Lane is on this story.
Once banned from Twitter and other social media platforms, President-elect Trump knows the consequences of censorship. His election could allow him to help reverse what many, including popular podcaster Joe Rogan, believe is a dangerous trend towards suppressing free speech.
Thing is nuts, and it's a dangerous path that we were on. We were on that path. Trump has vowed to have free speech become a very important part of what he's standing for, and that this censoring of information needs to stop.
As to reversing this trend, a Wall Street Journal editorial recommends an executive order mandating that if federal employees encourage private companies to censor individuals' First Amendment rights, those actions must be reported to the Office of Management and Budget. The OMB would then publish these reports online. Others propose revising the traditional interpretation of speech rights that are unlimited under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In 2017, Columbia Law School professor Timothy Wu wrote, "The right to free speech is entering a new period of political irrelevance." He went further a year later at an Aspen Institute forum.
The First Amendment to the United States Constitution has become obsolete.
Since then, certain U.S. political figures, such as former Secretary of State John Kerry, have expressed concerns that freedom of speech in this social media era allows the distribution of false information.
Look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
This is the most dangerous anti-free speech period in our history because we've never seen an alliance with the government, media, academia, corporations like this one.
A recent poll by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression found 53% of American adults believe the First Amendment goes too far in protecting free speech. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley finds this statistic alarming. He believes current American culture is producing a new generation fearful of free speech.
These kids have been told their entire lives that free speech is harmful and it's triggering and you don't have to hear opposing views. It's very hard to get a free people to give up freedom. They have to be really afraid or really angry. And that's what we're seeing.
NYU law professor Kenji Yoshino believes the American commitment to this right needs to be updated. He argues that's due to many changes in our country's political and cultural landscape since the First Amendment was established.
Right? Today, it's a really different landscape, right? Anyone with a social media account can be a publisher of their own speech, and that's a really wonderful thing from the perspective of expression. But we also need a different model that says the only threat to speech, or the primary threat, is not necessarily government.
Long before social media and the internet, people publicly shared their views primarily at school board and city council meetings. They also expressed opinions through letters to local newspapers, where editors often censored or rejected their submissions. Today, with smartphones in hand, nearly everyone can share their thoughts on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and X. Many previously marginalized voices are now heard, although some share false information or hate speech. While this type of speech is protected by the First Amendment, it also poses significant challenges.
Sometimes that's going to mean you're going to protect some Nazis, you're going to protect some Klan members, but also means you're going to protect some abolitionists, you're going to protect some suffragettes. And the question is there an alternative that would work better?
Some legal scholars and politicians want oversight boards established to monitor speech on social media. Yale law professor Keith Whittington sees that as problematic.
Suggests that if you start empowering government officials to pick and choose which speech they want to protect because they think is really valuable, and which speech they want to suppress because they really think it's really bad and people shouldn't have to listen to that, the result is not going to be good for democracy or for the margins of society or for the progress of society more broadly.
Turley believes Americans must understand this right was granted to humanity by the Creator, not by the government. The government is responsible for safeguarding this right, and each generation must actively defend it.
We have to have a type of awakening. You know, we have to remind ourselves of why this right is indispensable. Because if free speech was given to us by God, if it is part of being human, if it's in our DNA, then you can never really kill it without killing us.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Still ahead, he was a pastor turned spy turned assassin. Deitrich Bonhoeffer is now the subject of a new film. We're going to take you behind the scenes and show you how the film is inspiring audiences to be, quote, Bonhoeffer brave. We got this story for you right after this. Film critics are praising a powerful movie about a Christian man's resistance to oppression, religious persecution, and mass murder. It's based on the real life of Lutheran pastor Deitrich Bonhoeffer, who waged a courageous battle against Hitler in the 1930s and 40s. Here's our look at Bonhoeffer, pastor, spy, assassin.
The story of Deitrich Bonhoeffer, one of the German World War II heroes who had the courage to speak up when the German church was taken over by Hitler. And in the process, lost everything he ever had, but also saved many lives.
Bonhoeffer took on the world. I mean, he was not afraid. He was very courageous, despite the fact that everybody was against him.
And it's about resistance, humanity. It's a story we should keep in mind.
So, John, how did you come to Bonhoeffer's story? What happened?
So there was a surge of interest a while ago in Bonhoeffer's life. About 12 years ago, the lead producers on this project read a biography and just were really interested in what they were reading and about this man's life and about both his struggle with the greatest evil of his time, but also the timelessness of his journeys.
Something's coming. Something unstoppable.
Look around you, my friend. How much light do you see?
Tell me about this man for people who aren't familiar with his story.
Sure. I think the easiest way to describe Deitrich Bonhoeffer is that he was a World War II German resistance figure, and while his training was as a pastor and theologian, ultimately his life led him to become a spy and then a figure involved in an assassination plot against Hitler. So from a theologian and pacifist to someone actively involved in the struggle to overthrow tyranny.
You will go to England as our spy.
We have devised a plot to assassinate the Führer.
Tell me about the director and the casting for the film. What was it like to work with this team?
We could have taken several different approaches on casting. Ultimately, we decided to do was to use German actors, and I mean the sort of the cream of the crop of German actors as our Germans, as the good Germans who were fighting against the Nazis and formed the resistance within the country. So the Jonas Dassler is our amazing Bonhoeffer. He's a brilliant young actor, rising star in Germany, and he just brings Bonhoeffer to life in every dimension and detail.
We need to let the world know what the Nazis are doing to the Jews. And if the church does not speak now, we will lose our voice for 100 years.
How would you say this story resonates today?
Oh, the thing about Bonhoeffer is, you know, we all have a challenge and a choice in our lives to stand up against evil and to fight for justice. We may not have an opponent like Adolf Hitler, but we often have obvious evil in our own lives that we can challenge and confront. And Bonhoeffer, I think, blazes a trail for how you can be brave in doing that. In fact, one of our social media hashtags is Bonhoeffer Brave. And we really hope this film encourages people to be Bonhoeffer brave in the challenges that they face in their life.
I'm ready to meet my destiny.
Bonhoeffer, Pastor Spy Assassin, is playing in theaters right now. Check your listings to find out where you can see it. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Tuesday ahead. Stay with us. It is time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I want to leave you with this message to post, tag, tweet, and share with those in your circles of influence. There is no failure in God. He makes no mistakes. Things may not look great, but God is still great, and again, He makes no mistakes. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. I encourage you to do that with purpose and do it on purpose as well. Remember, God makes no mistakes. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time. You can also find them online. That address is cbnnews.com. I'd love for you to take a moment and let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, X, which is formerly known as Twitter. Make this a terrific Tuesday. Be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week as well. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. God bless, and thank you so much for watching.